But here's what nobody's talking about. The attackers didn't touch the credit cards, didn't touch the customer database, didn't touch any of the stuff hackers supposedly care about. They walked right past all of that and went straight for Nike's IP, their intellectual property, the designs, the schematics, the stuff that makes Nike, Nike. And that's what tells you exactly where the money is today. Because while everyone is out there patching and checking boxes and rolling out zero trust like it's gospel, organized criminals are 3 moves ahead. They know what you're protecting, they know what you think you're protecting, and they know the gap between those two is where the real payday lives. Today's guest is Chris Griffin, 22 years contributing to the actual international manual that defines how penetration testing actually is done properly, the way it's supposed to work. Not the Hollywood version, the methodical, surgical, Sopranos style version. And he's going to tell you why zero trust has blind trust baked into it, why the overused phrase defense in depth is a military strategy that does not work in networks, and while physical security is the hole you didn't know you had. Because look, if a guy with a box of donuts and a smile can walk into your building, load his arms up with your intellectual property, and walk out through the stairwell that you propped open for airflow, then your zero trust model and firewall, frankly, don't matter. All right, welcome everybody to Cybercrime Junkies. I am your host, David Morrow, and in the studio today is Chris Griffin, founder and CEO of Griffin Security here in Indianapolis, with global coverage across this big blue marble of a planet. And we're really excited to hear about the things he's developed, how he approaches reducing risk for organizations against cybercrime, and all the things in between. Chris, welcome to the studio.
Thank you. I've been really enjoyed watching your podcast, so I'm excited to be here.
Well, and we didn't even pay you to say that. Like, isn't
right?
that cool? That's like fantastic, man. No, I really appreciate it. And fellow Hoosier, like, yeah. I can't believe I didn't know you before. So we go to the same places, though. We bump into the same people. So tell us about kind of what your approach is, what your platform is. You and I talked, obviously, ahead of time. It's really interesting. But tell us now, Griffin Cyber is pretty new, right? Like it was, looks like it was formed in the last year or so. Obviously, you've been in cybersecurity for a long time.
Yeah.
Talk to us about like what you saw as a void and why you created this.
Sure. I guess to give a little bit of background, in the early 2000s, I had been in IT doing a lot of different things, from help desk to SOC to you name it. And at a company I was at, a friend of mine was leaving, and he was telling me about it before he left. And I was like, where are you going? He's going, I'm going to go be a junior pen tester in New York City. I was like, what's a pen tester?
Right.
And he told me, and I was like, that's what I want to do. That's it.
You just knew right away.
Yes.
Yeah.
So early on in 2004, because I asked him, I said, what can I do to get there? Teach me, show me, I'll do whatever.
What certs do you need? What experience, what tool sets do you need to learn? Like all the trappings of it, right?
Yeah. The first thing he told me, and it really hung with me, obviously, is you need to go download the OSTEM, the Open Source Security Testing Methodology Manual, and learn that. And at the time, it was version 2. So I went out, I downloaded it, I went through it over and over and used it, applied it in the company I was in to do the penetration testing. And one day they posted version 3 is coming out. So didn't work that day. I'm on the website refreshing like every 2 minutes.
And you're like, holy cow, I got to change my entire approach.
Right. And it got removed from the website. No mention of it. So I emailed him and was like, what's going on? You know, I was waiting on this. And the guy, Pete Herzog, that created it, he was like, we found a control that wasn't really a control, and we have to go back and fix things. And he's like, if you want to contribute, I'll get you the latest draft in your hands right now. It's like,
how excellent!
sure.
What a great opportunity, right? To
Yeah.
help contribute to the actual like structure and foundation of that industry, right?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So in 2004, I started contributing with that. In fact, I think it was March, so 22 years next month.
Yeah.
And
you've been doing it ever since, essentially.
Yes, heavily.
Wow.
And, I try to take it to companies I go to, and I've seen a lot of companies, in fact, a couple that I work for that mention it in their blogs and whatnot. And I quickly found out, like many other things, it was just a buzzword they put on their website. Right. And I was passionate about it, obviously, 22 years later, still here.
You're contributing to the creation of it.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you're like, I don't just follow it. I just don't know what it is. Like, these are frameworks. These are like standards, steps you're supposed to take to do the right thing, the best practice.
Yeah.
And you are literally helping write the best practice.
Yeah. And I have learned so much. It's been the most valuable experience for sure. But it took me several years of being in the pen test mindset of not looking deeper, go in there, smash and grab like we typically do in pen tests. And the more I grew and the more I learned, because, back then in the mid 2000s and early 2010s, being a pen tester is sexy. And, a lot of people can say it. Now it's rampant. So,
well, it's cool because, and so people that aren't technical, like a pen test is actually what a hacker does. Like when people think of that Hollywood image in their mind of the kid in the hoodie, living in the mom's basement, drinking Red Bull, cracking code, right? Like the truth is, it's penetration testing with a bad intent generally when it's displayed on TV. Also, most of cybersecurity is built to stop bad actors, right?
That's the intent, yeah.
Yeah, but the pen test is organizations that hire people to do to them what a bad actor would do, so that way they can see the holes that they otherwise couldn't see and then shore them up.
Yeah, and I think the biggest differentiator between a hacker and a pen tester is a pen tester has a scope of work to keep them within the lines, and a hacker does not. Hacker will do whatever they want to get whatever they want. And over years, I started to fall less in love, I guess, with pen testing. I mean, it's still fun. I love to do it. But, the scope confines us, and organizations step back and don't pull in the big picture. Right. They focus on whatever little subtopic they wanted to check a box or whatever the case was. I mean, I've done tests for companies that wanted to check a box. We did a pen test. And I've done tests for companies that truly wanted to know where they were and how to better themselves.
Right.
Those are the ones I prefer, obviously.
Because then it's a holistic picture. It's a 360 picture of if we got in on this limited scope, what else is out there and how do we have visibility into it and then take steps to remediate it.
Exactly. One thing, so I self-admittedly harp on zero trust quite a bit.
Yeah, you are like I have so many interesting people I've met through this podcast. Like I've got Darren Mott, former FBI. He's the town crier about TikTok, right? Like he's like, it's the Chinese espionage, CCCP, social engineering of the American public. And you are like the town crier of zero trust, which is a really interesting approach because so many people are like, well, if you really want to go extreme on your lockdown state and really want to bolster, you need to get to and move towards zero trust. Let's unpack that a little bit. What, first of all, how are we defining zero trust for the non-technical? Like explain it to us. And then what are the issues with it?
So to sum it up in a very short phrase is never trust, always verify. And what I have come to find out is there's a lot of blind trust and zero trust.
So that's an interesting take.
Yeah.
So there's still too many assumptions along the way that are made.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll give you a great example.
Like explain. Yeah. Give me an example.
As we see, companies will roll out patches, Microsoft patches, whatever it is. I pick on Microsoft a lot because that's what most people are familiar with.
And they're at the epicenter of like every friggin' breach.
I was trying not to go there, but yeah.
Yeah, but with like no consequence. Everyone's like, wow, can't believe they did that. We'll take 50 more licenses. And you're like, what is going on?
Yes.
Like if, you know, I mean, and I'm not saying it's like, you know, we're a big partner with them. Like, I get it. Like, they're so big and they're integrated into our entire ecosystem. You can't avoid them. But it is shocking to me, like how often they're right involved in like everything. Yes. And like everyone's like, well, yeah, don't mind them. We need them.
Right.
So like, wow, if we did that, we'd be out of business in like a week. You know what I mean? Like, it's just crazy.
It's wild. So the most obvious example, which a lot of people don't really cognitively be aware of, is there's been many patches and updates that will reset baselines that you used Active Directory to enforce global policies, group policies. And typically you're unalerted that these policies didn't set back to what they were intended. So now have
Zero Trust just says patch immediately, right?
Yeah.
Or patch within a very urgent time frame. So you do that, but now you've just created a bunch of vulnerabilities and Zero Trust doesn't address that.
Very much, yes. Which I think that really directly flies in the face of never trust, always verify.
Right.
I have, in 16 years of pen testing, I've never seen anyone fully lab test patches and updates. Some test to a degree, but it's more of, does the system keep running, is what it boils down to.
Right.
And I'm sure there are...
Does it obviously break something?
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, is it obviously breaking something, as opposed to, did it create vulnerabilities that aren't being alerted?
Exactly.
Interesting.
And, I mean, I've myself pulled up dozens, and I didn't even finish. There were more to go, and that's enough for my talk I was going to do.
Wow.
And, typically, like I said, they're not alerted on. No one knows about it until someone stumbles across it, or
somebody gets in through it, right?
Yeah.
If somebody breaks in through it and they're like, well, I don't understand, I patched. And we used to have that script on there, but apparently when we patched, it must have broke it.
Yeah. Okay. Another example is there was a Microsoft update, early 2000s, I think, or late teens, and it broke SMB. So companies were having to roll back to allow SMB version 1 unsigned, which obviously is a hole.
Right.
And obviously it's not something that's, in an internal network is somebody's going to attack it right away. But, you get a pen tester in there and finds a SMB version 1 with signing not required. That's a valid path to escalate further.
Sure.
And if you don't know that it's there, then you're not looking for the other things that it uses that mechanism for. I will say, I used to harp on ZTNA, the network access tunnels.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably the smartest thing because it eliminates
the ZTNA, let's explain that acronym.
Yeah.
That's zero
network access.
Right. Zero Trust Network Access. And that is the actual tunnel that doesn't trust anything outside of its own code, essentially.
Right. Yes. And to give you kind of a loose idea, like SSH, when you connect to a host the first time, you're prompted, do you want to accept this key? Is it legitimate? And you say yes. Now you have that authentication between you that's no longer, you don't have to prompt for anything. If you do get a prompt, then a key's changed, then there's an issue. Now, without the policy engine and all the other stuff, it's a similar idea. It's a trusted communication between you and the host that if something breaks, you have some kind of a notification, the key doesn't match, whatever it is. So loosely speaking, similar-ish idea. Obviously, ZTNA goes much farther with the policy engines, but to step back again a little bit, the IPv6 remote code execution that came out, it was last year or the year before. And if a system in a network is running IPv6, then you can do a remote code execution. And that took place before the firewall. So even if you're blocking If IPv6 is running, but you're blocking it, doesn't matter. You've exploited the box.
Okay, so explain that, what you just explained. Let's break that down in English for somebody that doesn't know what that means.
Yeah. So the traditional internet has always ran on IPv version 4, and IPv6 was created to circumvent the lack of IPv4 addresses that we're going to hit, which hasn't hit yet. And it's a really long string, hexadecimal string, as opposed to just your 4 octets for an IP address. I'm a big fan of IPv6 in the sense that it kind of makes it harder to track down hosts. Like, it's harder to tell, okay, this host is on the same subnet I am, and it's just a little bit more convoluted. But if, in that instance, if you remote code execution the box, you now have a shell or run some kind of remote code on it. It doesn't matter if you have ZTNA, doesn't matter if you have a firewall on the box, you've got it.
And what would that give? So that this is the tool set that an attacker would use, or pen tester, obviously, for within a scope, but an attacker would use to breach a business. And in what context is that? Is that coming in from the outside, being able to find and like compromising the actual IP address, or how does that come into play?
You have to have direct access to the box. I mean, like, if you're coming from the outside, you're not going to touch it on the inside unless you have already built a tunnel, a hole into the network. But, look at the bad actors that get hired into a company to exfiltrate data, maliciously affect whatever their operations are. That's a completely viable option. And the issue is newer Windows systems typically come with IPv6 enabled by default, and people throw in the network. And that also flies in the face of least privilege. You have something enabled that you're not using. So if you don't use IPv6, you should shut it off, which obviously would then mitigate that vulnerability.
How important is that rule, that control of least privilege? To me, it seems extremely important.
It is. And again, that's Microsoft's Achilles heel. They've made the system so usable that it's hard to dial down that attack surface. Because now, you're downloading apps, you're running macros, doing all these things, and
no alarms are going off.
Right. Or typically no alarms, depending on the situation. And that also kind of goes back to defense in depth, which was great for military thinking. Because what you're doing in defense in depth...
It's a nice buzzword. It's a nice phrase.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like, have lots of layers, defense in depth.
Right. And I think that's wrong. It made sense for military troops. Because what you're doing is you're thinning out the enemy, or the enemy's retreating, or you're taking out the enemy as they're coming through. But that's not taken into consideration the digital network, where your firewall was meant to do that. But if you get a user that clicks on something ridiculous, it didn't matter what your firewall was or if you had one. Now it's packet teleportation basically into the network, bypassing dozens of controls maybe. Yeah. So what we talk about is the Mobius defense. So everything is considered a Mobius strip. There is no inside outside.
Okay, explain what that is. So what is the Mobius? First of all, how do you spell it? Like, and what is the defense?
Mobius.
Okay, Mobius.
Yeah, and so if you take a strip of paper and you cross it over and then flip it, now the entire surface is the same no matter what side. It's all one surface at that point.
Correct.
So the idea is your PC, your firewall, your network, everything, your servers are all, there's no internal, external anymore. It's all one surface. So you could armor a host from an external perspective, external of that host, but you could have wildly insecure internal measures. Like, you can have a system firewall, you can shut down ports, you can do all this stuff. But if you don't have the internal controls of the host, your antivirus, EDR, whatever, then that's an entire attack surface wide open. So the idea is to secure it as a whole organism rather than inside and outside thinking.
Right, exactly.
And we've talked about that since 2005 or 6, maybe 4, I forget, a long time. And we call it defensive width, because the idea is, instead of focusing on stacking layers, since everything is, there's no internal, external, or inside, outside, there's no, I'm going to put these controls in place, then on the inside, we're going to put these controls in place. Everything is combined, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah.
So
that makes a lot of sense.
So I've been really actually kind of vocalizing that more and more, because slightly off topic but similar topic is, you got your compliances. So you get like CNMC,
Right.
PCI.
Yep.
They're only focusing on the payment card network or the cloud network. And you can have a very secure cloud network, but you have people inside that have trust into that. So if you can take control of a host that has access to that, then that's your open hole.
Right.
And
well, CMMC is a good example, right? Because they build these enclaves, right, to access CUI, controlled unclassified information, dealing with the Department of Defense, right? All the designs, all of that. If you are a business that, makes anything that ultimately winds up with the Department of Defense, you've got these new regulations and stuff. And some of them are very burdensome on a smaller business, but they build this enclave where they physically wall off like a separate room, limit access, build just a dedicated set of machines that will access this data, etc. But if there's other tentacles elsewhere, because the rest of the organization sometimes is still operating without eyes on glass, sometimes they don't even have EDR on that. Like, there's so many things that they don't have. Then the whole thing, like, they could just get in and then get to the Department of Defense.
Exactly. And I'll use PCI as an example because I have more experience with that.
Yeah. And PCI is just the credit card processing and financial data that's collected, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Typically, and this has evolved a little bit over time, but, some years ago, you had to completely contain your PCI network and the hosts that process credit card data.
Right.
But, this admin, they were whitelisted or had access into those where anyone else on the network didn't. And again, if you compromise that host, now you have the same tunnel into that network they had.
Right.
Now, of course,
they roll out new PCs for different employees, and they have admin access built into the PC.
Yeah.
Right. And now all of a sudden, the configurations and stuff, and those users might not even be aware they could access it. Yeah. But when they're clicking away, like it's an Olympic sport, right? And they friggin' just like, I don't have to worry about this. You know what I mean? And that happens because they're busy, they're distracted, they're tired, whatever. A bad actor knows how to look around and how to navigate.
Yeah, and sometimes it's a lot of right place at the right time.
Yeah.
I managed to get access to this box, and it just happens to have whitelisted access into the PCI network. Without that, you have to do a lot of digging and understand who has that PCI need, and then correctly target them.
Or you can ask Copilot, right? Once you get inside to an organization, you just start leveraging their own AI. Like, hey, where's our intellectual property cap? See, I've been looking for this report to the CEO. Let me help you.
Right.
Mainlines you right there.
Oh, yeah. And my biggest beef with PCI was up until I think it was early 2004.
Mm-hmm.
They were fine with 7-character alphanumeric passwords.
Wow.
Now, I think what they intended was, because there's a lot of old devices, old card readers and whatnot out there, and they couldn't handle the more complex passwords.
Mm-hmm.
What should have been done was, if you have these older models that can't handle complex passwords, then you have to use complex passwords.
Right.
Your exception rather than the rule. And I've had that bite me on tests before where, hey, I easily got your password hash and I very easily cracked it in like 3 minutes. And they're like, well, what's PCI say about that? 7-character alphanumeric, and you had 8-character alphanumeric. And that goes back to we're just trying to check a box.
Right.
We did what they said.
Yeah. So much of it still goes back to the mentality of the leadership in the organization. I still see it, and to me there needs to be like a vigilant mindset. You know what I mean? Like a mindset of, look, we have to realize, like, and I will say it's usually driven by business success, what the trajectory of their own careers, what has led them to be successful and sitting in that seat, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, well, look, I haven't been breached yet that I know of, but let's not talk about that. Like I haven't been breached yet. And so why do I have to invest this? Right. And then you couple that with internal IT people. First of all, business leaders sometimes don't understand the difference between the IT folks and the security folks. Right. And then you couple that sometimes with the struggle of IT leaders, generally speaking, in communicating effectively the business impact, right? Like it's not just about this technology could do this or would do this. It is the business impact here to reduce the risk and measure that risk somehow for this type of risk. Because oftentimes when I'm speaking with business leaders, they have security concern. They have true anxiety, true worry, but they can't quantify it, or they don't know how to solve it, right? Will it be solved with a $1,000 investment, or will it require a $1.2 million investment? Like, well, it kind of depends.
Well,
right?
You touch on something really interesting. As we know, large companies have actuaries, right?
Yeah.
So they will go through the data and say, okay, the controls to protect us cost $1 million. But if it does get breached, then we only have to pay out 500,000. So obviously it doesn't make sense from a financial standpoint to protect it. And I'm not saying all companies do that, obviously, CYA, but
of course,
that's very valid. I mean, our insurance does it every day.
Yeah.
Is your treatment going to cost this much? It's going to cost us this much. So we're going to, not do it, because even if we have to pay out, it's cost us less. And one thing
that's so true. Right.
Yeah.
And that's where it's imperative, I think, for people that care on the inside or the consultants on the outside, whomever, to really focus on what is the actual concern, right? What's the leadership's risk appetite?
Right.
Is it 40% risk here? Or is it 10%? Yeah. Like the lower the percent of that risk appetite, the more expensive it gets. So like if they're reasonably here, how do we get there within some acceptable budget range where we're investing 500 grand, and should we get hit, the risk is 800 grand. Let's find that scenario and get that control done first. Right. Because even the actuaries or any consultant or CPA, et cetera, won't question that one.
Right. And that's one thing I love about the Austin is it measures using scientific math, the risk and trust, which I can talk about the trust part later, but the risk, even one great example is I tested a company and they had, I think it was 6 or 7 layers of authentication.
Oh, really?
Wildly missing other controls.
Really?
And so essentially what I could do was tell them, okay, look, you're paying for 6 different identity solutions,
right?
But you're missing these entirely.
Right.
So you can cut back on your identity solution and save a ton of money, which is way more than enough to apply these other controls that you need. And not every control costs money.
That's really good advice. Like that's very good advice that speaks to the business minded human.
Yeah. And then I had mentioned I'm doing work in Dubai too, and they're really big on security awareness training. So what I'm doing, let's be honest, employees don't care about their work computer.
No.
Most of the time they just don't. But
that's
they care about their home computer.
Exactly. Well, that's why the best security awareness training like that we do, that I run, is to focus on the individual. Because if you focus on the individual and how they protect themselves, how they protect their families, children, elderly relatives, right?
Yeah.
And you give them real practical ways to do that and explain why that matters, right?
Yes.
Then all of a sudden, that discipline, that new approach, that new mindset that they have, whenever they're using technology, the employer benefits.
Exactly.
Right? Traditional security awareness to me is
No.
crap. Like it was all done wrong. It was done by somebody in a monotone at work that bogged people down, told them like, beware of juice jacking and all this other stuff. I'm like, nobody's freaking breaching Nike with juice jacking. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not really happening. Like, it can happen. I'm not dismissing it. I'm just minimizing that point in the grand scheme of things.
I like to point out, so we know the Chrome store has a ton of malicious extensions. Because it's very easy for an attacker to pay a couple $1,000, get their extension in, and it might sit there for a month, it might sit there for 3 years.
Right.
Well, typically people, so they can sync their passwords and bookmarks, are going to sign into Chrome from home and from work.
Right.
And I tend to phrase it to them, if you load a malicious extension at work, that's now copying over to home. Now your bank data is at risk, your passwords are at risk. Rather than the other way, because it kind of still takes away from the...
Because they still don't care about work.
Exactly.
Like they still are like, well, that's my employer's problem.
Exactly. Which, I mean, is a horrible mindset, obviously. Because...
But that's a really good point. So let me ask you, what does an organization do about that? Like, what can people do? Like, you know how there's DNS filtering and there's controls that can be placed. Can organizations limit the type of extensions that users can use in their browser settings? I know
there are. I don't know specifics off the top of my head.
It's still kind of hard, though. It's not something that is actively marketed or discussed.
Yeah.
Right?
What I say, so Firefox is not invulnerable to this, but it's a lot less of an issue.
100%.
And I hate how everything's, you got to download Chrome to use this site or whatever.
I know. It's the whole world runs on Chrome. And it's like the most insecure browser.
Absolutely.
Like partly because it's so popular. Yeah. Right? Like it's because it's so popular, attackers have loaded up the Chrome store, right? That web store with a bunch of malicious extensions. Oh, yeah. That people don't know is malicious because it works. Right. Yeah. It works great. And I love it.
They're not well vetted either. Like I said, an attacker can pay a couple $1,000 or whatever to get their extension.
Well, it's like the Android App Store compared to the Apple App Store.
Yeah.
The Apple App Store, much harder to get an app in there.
So like I said, Firefox is not invulnerable to it, but it's a lot of it. So for a while, I had a hobby of collecting InfoStealer dumps. Just to kind of, for one, I was building a password list for pen testing.
Some people collect Pokemon cards, like collecting InfoStealer.
I'm too old for that.
Dumps. Yeah, I was going to say, it's like the modern Pokemon in a way.
Yeah.
I'll explain that to my kids.
And I don't think people realize how easy it is to obtain those.
Oh, yeah.
For free. Now, if you want the most updated stuff, you're paying a group like $100 for lifetime access, which in this case, lifetime means until they get taken down, but still. But there's a lot of valuable data. And here's a great example. I was tracking one customer, and they had a few users show up in breaches or InfoStealers. But this one user consistently used wife's name and 3 or 4 characters every time. So that is super easy to build a fuzz list. You always include the name, and then you fuzz the last 2 or 3 or 3 or 4 numbers. And he was using it for work, for home, for Amazon, for literally everything. I never saw one complex password out of that email address. And that also goes back to security awareness. And we're all guilty of reusing passwords. I am too, but I'm picky about if it's a site I don't care about, then I will have these other passwords I'll use. But if it's something I care about,
Right.
That's the only site getting that password. I do not store it in a password tool. And we can't expect everyone to think like that because it's an added layer of work too.
Right.
But at least arming them with that knowledge is at least a step in the right direction.
Absolutely.
But
Well, yeah,
yes.
because and when I've returned to organizations or associations and we're speaking to them about security awareness and best practices, I've had people come up to me like this multiple times, and they're like, "Hey, I took your advice. I've got a really good password now. I use it on everything." And I'm like, "No, like that wasn't the advice, man. Like it's
Yeah.
like, because if you're using it on, ABC site and they have no security and they get breached, now your login and your credentials are out there. Like that great password, they can just log into your NK with that, your banking, etc. Like in your work. So
and people have the faulty mindset of, well, I'm not big enough of a target for anybody to worry about.
yeah,
No, there
that's a
are
myth.
automated scripts that will take these emails and passwords and just start blasting them around the world.
Mhm.
I saw a well-known company user was logging into a normal site and a adult site, and both of them had very complex passwords. Would have completely passed any password check, but didn't matter because he had an InfoStealer. He or she, I don't know, had an InfoStealer. So those are out there,
Right.
and that also touches on. I'm really irritated by this latest recommendation of you only have to cycle your passwords if you think you've been breached.
Right.
Your InfoStealer might have data out there for weeks, if not months, and you have no idea.
Right.
And that means that's that much longer someone has to infiltrate your stuff. So I'm not
But
a fan of that rule.
until we speak in terms of what it means to the individual, right? Then it's not going to resonate.
No. Which, security awareness is a constant uphill battle,
Oh
but
yeah.
we can do so much better than what we're doing. I can't remember the last time I had a security awareness training web based that I didn't just let the video play and I went off to do something else. I come back and you know the answers. If
Yeah,
you've
exactly.
done a
You're like,
handful of them,
let's just get to the quiz.
exactly.
Right?
Well, then
Because
they made it so where you can't skip the video or fast
right,
forward it. So you just move it off screen and
right,
go about your business and answer the questions. And that's that checkbox mentality,
right.
which I think checkbox mentality is probably the biggest detractor in our industry
Mm-hmm.
because it's not looking at the hardcore data. It's we have to do this, so let's just
Yeah.
make it as easy as possible,
Right.
which is a
Absolutely.
nightmare,
I know.
as you know.
So tell us about your platform that you've built and the work you're doing in Dubai.
So actually, I have two platforms now. One, I'm looking for VC funding to get it built because while I've got a proof of concept, I am nowhere near the coder to put this into production action.
Just log into Claude and have it vibe coded. I'm kidding. I'm
I
kidding.
worry about security with everything with Claude.
I
I
know.
did use it to build my proof of concept, though.
Well, right. I, as was just explaining, I use it daily, like to build workflows and stuff. And if users haven't tried it, I encourage you to try it just for your own personal, right? Make sure you have your settings set so that you're not feeding the LLM, but still just use it for non-confidential stuff, but something that you can, like, it does a really good job of like building an app for you that automates your own weekly tasks. Like it's phenomenal. Like I'm amazed by it, but I'm not trying to like take this app and go to market with it, right?
Yeah.
Where pen testers like you will cut right through it.
Right.
Like that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm just using it for myself. So
which I do have a story about that in a second. But so the main app I built is, so what I do is I go out to companies and I will evaluate the network, evaluate the controls, and beyond that, we evaluate the weakness of the controls. So, it kind of comes down to a simple example of if I've got a piece of crap lawnmower in my shed that I really don't care that much about, then I'll buy a $5 padlock for it.
Right.
And if it gets stolen, hey, I get a new mower,
Right.
But if I've got a $5,000 Dixie chopper, then I'm going to put a really good lock on that, and I might even put up some cameras.
Right.
So since no other security is hinged on that, they can't get into my house if they break the lock. It's just for the lawnmower. Then that single lock mechanism is sufficient, and I just decide how much I want to spend.
And that's where a lot of controls fail to really differentiate between the two.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a really good point. That's a really good point.
So it was on Reddit earlier this week, I think it was.
Where most of our AI answers come from.
Right. This guy had built some kind of a media app. I think it cataloged your media, if I remember correctly.
Cool.
But it used online resources too. And people started cutting him down so much that he made the group. You had to apply to be in the group. You couldn't see any post. Took down his GitHub because there was zero security. And everyone's like, this is pure vibe code. He didn't even double check the work. It worked, but not from a security standpoint.
Right.
And obviously we're seeing a lot of that in the industry.
Yeah.
And people don't have that security mindset to even think that far ahead into it. Most people. And
people are downloading OpenClaw at work, right? And SMBs don't have, and for those that don't know or haven't seen our other episodes on OpenClaw, please Google it, because OpenClaw is an incredible AI assistant, but it is too incredible and it is wide open, right? And so it takes root access over your device, and you can get it to do anything, but it also does things that you have no idea it's doing, like join Multbook, the AI only social media platform, like just all these things it does. It makes calls, like it starts to do everything, which is really, really frightening. It's really cool, but you have to have the security controls in place to limit what it's, if something's going to basically be alive on your system by itself, don't have that access work in all of your other intellectual property. Have it access, I've heard guys have had really good success getting an old Mac Mini or something like that and just downloading it on that. That's pretty cool. Then you can see all the potential that it can do.
Yeah, I would go a step further and put it in its own separate network because I don't want it touching my stuff.
Correct. I would agree. But totally segment it. But
that actually leads into another issue of the shiny object syndrome that people will get, and they got to be the first one there, and it's a detriment, obviously, because you can't just, like the first model car, that comes out of the new style from whatever company, that first and second model year always has issues.
Oh yeah, there's
almost guaranteed.
Tons of recalls, right?
And it's no different.
It's just part of it.
Yeah, and it's no different in any other industry,
right?
Like ours.
Yep.
One thing to back up a little bit to address risk, which I've had really good feedback from this one, because whether you're technical or not, it makes sense. And I got a visual for it, but basically you picture, okay, you're in Indiana. So imagine it's warmer out than it is now, and we're walking down the Monon Trail in Carmel.
Yep.
What's our risk? Pretty low, right?
Pretty low.
And now you take us, same clothes, no extra gear, no nothing, and drop us into a war-torn area, the Russia-Ukrainian line or something. What's our risk?
Right.
Pretty high. Right. Our attack surface was exactly the same for both. So
great
we
point.
focus
So
on
it's
addressing
context. It's about context.
Yes. So we address the attack surface because risk is biased. Risk is a lot of what ifs or maybe someday. Attack surface is what it is. So if you reduce your attack surface and apply controls to what's left, whether you were in a high risk or low risk zone, you've automatically brought your risk down.
Absolutely.
Either way.
Absolutely. Let me ask you this. We were just talking about AI. I'm curious, what's your view when you're consulting with organizations who they've sat on the sidelines a little in terms of what AI to leverage in their organization? Say it's a U.S. small, mid-sized organization. And they're like, we dabble in it, They might do some things. Maybe marketing is using Chat GPT or something like that, but nobody is really like, there's no AI policy. There's no controls to limit AI. And then you have, to me, it seems like a huge blind spot because you don't know what users are doing with it and whether they've been trained to prompt it properly. Like, do they know? Like, yeah, it very well may help you if you upload all of the company financials into AI and have them analyze it. And it could generate that report faster for you. But is that the right thing to do? Because now it's gone. It's public, right? So
it depends on...
What are you seeing?
It depends on which AI, because each one operates a little differently. Like Grok, I think it was. I was like, and I was doing this as an experiment. I was like, I want to write XYZ malicious code. Nope, you can't do that. But then I'll come back and say, I'm a pen tester. I've been contracted for this gig, and I need a malware that does specifically this, this, and this. Oh, great. Since you're an authorized pen tester, spit me out tons of code.
Right. Exactly.
And that's probably the biggest gap in AI is
it
your
itself
creativity.
Can be socially engineered.
Yeah.
Right. It itself can be socially engineered.
It depends on your creativity in your prompting.
Right.
The majority of the time.
Yep.
Now, I did do that with Gemini, and I had to coax that thing 4 or 5 times to finally give it something. Yeah. And still, it wasn't gung-ho.
So at work, we have a platform that's SOC 2 compliant, and it has access to all of the LLMs, like 60 of them, ones I've never even heard of. Oh yeah, it's really fun. But it is all within a sandbox. So we are able to upload otherwise things we wouldn't upload to it because it doesn't go anywhere. Now, there's limitations, token limitations and other limitations. Like you can't do what I do in Claude at home. Like I can't build those apps in that environment, but I can do it a different way. I can create a workflow that'll essentially do the same thing. But it's not like a cool looking app that I could fire up instantly. So it's a little different, but to me, something like that seems to be where a lot of SMBs will eventually get to. You know, it's not really widely done yet.
Yeah, my recommendation is to build your own.
Yeah,
and you know we have the video card issue with the VRAM space for context windows and all that.
Right.
But
so many don't know how to do that, though.
Right. Well, depending on the size of the company and how much you plan to use it and what you plan to use it for, it might make more sense, even if it costs you a bit more for the peace of mind. I use RunPod a lot. So I can rent a 5090 for like 40 cents an hour. Cheap. Or I can rent a B200, which a single card has 180 gigs of VRAM for $5 an hour.
Wow.
So I can use a really big instance and build my custom model and train it with the information I want it to have.
And it doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't go anywhere.
So in RunPod, if you try to run it all day or 24 hours, you're going to incur some costs. But I can then train it, and then I can create a Guff model from it, which shrinks down its VRAM requirements. And then you can get by with, depending on the company size, XYZ system to use it for everyone. And your data's not going anywhere. It stays in the machine. It's only trained on what you want it to know. So if you try to tell it, create this malicious script, I have no idea how to do that.
Right.
And that's my go-to.
Pretty safe. Yeah.
I mean, and it's not perfect. I'm sure it's not flawless, but by comparison,
it's an there's a lot of stages in AI, right? There's generative AI, and then there's agentic, and then there's multi-agent, right? And then there's AGI, and then there's like super intelligence. And we're kind of in just the beginning stages right here. So I think that's your suggestion, or even my suggestion, where you have something that's housed off and sandboxed. To me, it seems a lot safer than not doing anything and just letting people and just assuming people aren't going to screw you over, right?
Well, so I said I'd bring up the trust metrics.
Yeah.
Great example. So if we put a box on site, and because you can buy some commercial servers with up to 7 or 8 video cards in one box of whatever you're choosing, you can be assured for all intents and purposes, that it was trained on what you wanted to know. The data doesn't go anywhere, and you can validate that. And then you've got, something that's not being influenced by other users outside the company, whatnot. But when you go to a commercial AI, Gemini, whatever, I don't want to pick on Gemini because I love them, but
Right, exactly.
you don't know who has access to the data centers. You don't know who has
Right.
access to the servers, to the data, to any file shares it's pulling from.
And it's
You
not
don't know
going to
any of
set
that.
off any alarms if they do access it. That's one of
Exactly.
the issues.
Yeah. And, if it's using like MCP, it just takes one user to drop in a junk file to completely pollute your data. And you may never know, because
Right.
how many times you get, ask a major AI a question and it seems pretty confident in the answer, but it's complete crap.
Yeah, it's completely wrong.
Yeah.
And it's completely,
But it's very confident that it's wrong.
right.
In its wrongness. So yeah, my recommendation always, and then, if you're dealing with a smaller company, you can buy a smaller server
Right.
to
Exactly.
do that, because, it scales. And then, of course, if you have that much bigger of a company, then you can buy 2 servers. And ultimately, it kind of depends on what market you're into. Like if you're into
Yeah.
pharmaceuticals, you've got a lot of billion-dollar IP in there.
Right. And a lot of regulation.
I would never, ever, no matter how much assurance I had, I would never put that stuff in a commercial AI, ever.
Correct.
Because it takes one leak and you
Right.
might lose $8 billion or $1 billion or
Right.
whatever it is.
Yep.
And not only that, now, not only have you lost the money, you've lost all that time you put into getting as far as you were.
Right.
There's a
All
lot of
the
other
intellectual
factors.
property. Yeah. I mean, and that is really at the end of the day what matters more, right? Like we just saw, I was just talking to somebody about the Nike breach, the recent Nike breach. At least this is just what my understanding is based on the SEC filings is, attackers got in and they leapfrogged over what traditional attackers would take. Like all the user base, all the credit cards, all that, they didn't take any of it. They went right to Nike's IP, and that's all they took. They took the schematics, the designs, the things that make Nike, right? They didn't go after Nike's customers, which they could have, but they were like, we don't even care. We're going after this, which is really interesting. Yeah, because really interesting.
You could sell it to someone.
Oh yeah.
They don't have to do any work. They now ship it to China for mass production.
Right.
And you've got the new Nike shoe that Nike can't put out. Or whatever.
Right.
I did a physical test.
It just leveled the playing field there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did a physical test for a company, and trying to keep it vague enough. They had IP. They would buy an idea, per se, and then mass produce it with the original owner's brand. They were just the mass production source.
Right.
But since it was physical and tangible, I could walk in and walk out with stuff. And it was a big building, and every brand had its own floor. So I could go into brand A's floor and walk off with stuff, and brand B and brand C. And,
unbelievable.
I was navigating the stairwells because there's no cameras.
Right.
And it's an old building in a very large city that was not built for ventilation. And they would prop the doors open in the stairwell for airflow.
Right.
I could walk in and load my arms up.
Or you could tailgate somebody, have a box of donuts, and be like, hey, can you let me in? I'm here to see Jane. What's the odds of there being a Jane in the whole building? Probably good. Right? Yeah. Or I'm here to see Carol or whatever, right? And you're there with donuts. Like, how harmless do you look? And somebody will let you in.
Well, yeah. And context is everything, too.
Yeah.
Some places you go into a suit, and you're much less likely to get asked any questions. If you go in a construction outfit, know your target, and it's almost a sure thing.
Yeah.
And I really harp on physical security too, because in the zero trust aspect.
It's all part of it.
Yeah. If I can get into your business, I don't care what control, BitLocker can be bypassed, all these other things. I can take a computer, I can put a Dropbox on your network. There's a ton of things I can do that now have circumvented at least some of your controls.
Absolutely. Well, hey man, this is phenomenal. As we wrap up, tell us more about what's on the horizon and what you're doing. Dubai sounds exciting. Your platform sounds exciting. Like, tell us.
I'm excited about that.
Yeah, just share with us kind of what you're developing for organizations.
So currently what I do is I will go in and I will run these tests to assess their controls, how well they work, are there weaknesses or gaps.
Absolutely invaluable. Like, absolutely every organization needs it.
But then the tool I'm working on, SaaS, will make it so that they can upload their own data, which is typically scan results and then prompt it with, like, okay, I uploaded the scan from this scope. Every system in this scope has XYD control, and it would automatically populate the risk and trust metrics. So they can have a dashboard or spit out a report and have a good idea where they're standing. So they really only need a manual assessment once a year or whatever, but they can constantly keep track of where they really are. The plan is it's not going to be terribly expensive because I want security to be better, honestly. And I've seen enough horror stories that, yeah, I want to pay my bills, but my data not getting leaked is just important to me.
Absolutely.
The other one I don't want to talk about because it's too new and
well, we'll have you back.
It's exciting.
Yeah, we'll have you back when it's baked and it's ready. Then
I've had one CISO tell me, because I pitched the idea to him because I trust him very much.
Yeah.
And he's like, build this. We need this now.
See, that's great.
Okay.
That's great. I love it.
On the horizon, too, real quick, is Austin 4. It's in the draft phase now, and it deals a lot in quantum. It's still a security testing methodology.
Yep.
But it goes so much wider and deeper that there's going to be a huge learning curve. But every time a new one comes out, there's tons of hype, lots of adoption.
Yep.
And one thing I found odd is I talked to a lot of pen testers in the U.S. Hey, you familiar with the Austin? No, what's that? It's in most security books, mentioned at least. But in Europe, so I worked for a global company at one point, early in my pen test days. None of my coworkers had heard of it. But I would talk with my cohorts in Europe.
Right.
Every one of them knew about it and has at least read it, if don't actively use it. So I'm also trying to
spread awareness within the community.
Get myself to where there's leverage to be, look, you guys need to take this seriously because everyone around us is doing this.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, and that goes all the way down from the industry down to individuals, right?
Yes.
Because our European brothers and sisters take their privacy much more seriously. And maybe it is cultural because of post World War II. They saw what, people being able to see what your name is and your religious affiliation and stuff and the physical harm that can come with it. But Americans are meanwhile like TikToking our lives, like taking pictures with our kid's face on it and the kid's school right there thinking, we're Americans. No one's going to do anything. And you're like, Jesus.
Well, while Europe has regulation requirements, compliances and stuff, to me, like you said, they have the inherent, for the most part, desire for security.
Right.
Where here, we've become very checkbox mentality for the most part.
Yep.
And there's always a new compliance standard coming out and this coming out. And it's like, let's just perfect what we have.
Right.
Instead of stacking something else on that we don't fully understand.
Right. Stacking another a set of check boxes for us to check is not really going to solve the inherent problem. Yeah. Right. That's great, man. Well, I love what you do. Keep doing it. Keep us posted. And I mean, we'll have you back 100% and let us know how things go. All right, buddy?
Sounds good to me. I appreciate it.
Thanks, man. Thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it. Great discussion. Thanks, buddy. See you.